G'day everyone and welcome back to the channel. In today's video I'll be taking a look at the PP2K from Modify and giving you guys my first impressions, as well as running you through the long list of issues I had with this replica and how I solved a bunch of them. But before we get started, just a couple of caveats. I haven't had this replica for very long and I've only fielded it twice, so I wouldn't call this a full-on review, because for those I like to have had the weapon for a long time and be really familiar with it. But it's also not just a regular first impressions video. There are quite a few problems that have arisen in that short time, and I've been able to solve most of them, and I'll be able to share those fixes with you in this video. And just as a quick side note, YouTube tends to demonetize these types of videos. Even though they're not real firearms, they tend to demonetize videos that open up the replicas and talk about the internals. So if you guys want to see more of this stuff, please consider supporting the channel. And if you can't afford to support us, a like and a comment will go a long way. Alright, now that that's all out of the way, let's dive into the video. So we're going to start off with the externals and the build quality of the replica overall. I would say Modify have done a really good job here. Overall, I would say the build quality is really good, and from the outside, you can't really spot anything where you would feel that this is a low quality replica. So I'm not going to harp on too long about this. The replica looks great. As far as gameplay is concerned, the PP2K's size and weight makes it perfect for CQB. As you see here, it's super easy for me to switch shoulders and clear corners and really flow in CQB. It also gives you the ability to climb over stuff without too much trouble, since the replica is really lightweight. The trigger is also nice and snappy. I mean, it's good enough, probably could be a little bit better. Overall, I would say it's like a poor man's MP7, compact, lightweight, but without the ambidextrous controls and with an extra step in the reloads. Okay, let's move on now to the replica's accuracy. So I haven't done any scientific testing on the accuracy, and my opinion here is based off the two skirms that I've had with the replica, but I don't see any problems here. The stock hop-up chamber and the stock bucking seem to do really well, and the replica is very accurate, as you can see. And now moving on to what's probably the most important part of a GBBR system, the gas efficiency. This is where the real problems start with the PP2K. I have to say I was very disappointed to see that with the CO2 mags, I was unable to get through an entire extended mag on a single CO2 cartridge. This was insane. It was barely even half. And that was a very bad sign to start with. It just seems absolutely unacceptable to me that Modify would sell an extended mag that doesn't actually work as an extended mag with a stock replica. That's crazy, and yeah, that's a huge fault with the replica. Now, lucky for me, I only plan on using this replica for CQB skirms, and it was already shooting a little bit too hot with the CO2 mags. So what I did was I bought a low power nozzle from Modify, and once I installed that, its gas consumption went down, of course, and it was now able to get through an entire mag, and it was shooting around 1.1 joule. So that little fix worked out for me, but it's still not acceptable. It should be able to get through an entire extended mag with the standard nozzle. It is, after all, the standard nozzle. But that fix only worked because I'm using the CO2 mags. If I were using the green gas mags, my replica would be shooting way too soft with the low power nozzle, which means I would probably have to change the inner barrel for a tighter inner barrel, which I have, but I don't really need to do that because it's shooting fine for CQB right now. I just want to quickly talk about the full auto capability of the replica. So with the CO2 mags, it does really well. I mean, only after I changed out the nozzle, of course. But with the CO2 mags, the rate of fire is consistent and it's really quick. But with the green gas mags, it slows down, and yeah, I wouldn't really use it with the green gas mags. Okay, so we've discussed the horrible gas efficiency of the replica, but we haven't really dived into the mags. Even though they're related, the mags are a disaster on their own. I'm sure part of the gas efficiency problems comes from the mag design, but the mags have multiple problems with them other than their gas efficiency. So let's dive into that. So I want to start off by saying that the magazines are where the quality of the overall product really drops. So I had a magazine break instantly after the first CO2 cartridge was installed. It was like, basically I put the cartridge in, 30 seconds later the valve exploded basically, and the CO2 all vented completely out of the magazine, and then every other CO2 cartridge I tried to put in after that vented out instantly. So I ordered a whole bunch of parts from Modify. One of them was a valve, a new valve, and as soon as I put the new valve in, the exact same thing happened. And I just wanted to check that it wasn't me installing it incorrectly, so I tried another valve, and that one also exploded. Another issue with the magazines is that the base plate on the bottom can come off slightly, and then the spring is not secured at all. So as I was trying to get that plate back on the onto the magazine, my finger slipped, and the spring went flying God knows where, and that went missing. I think this is a horrible design, and yeah, so I'm also now down a magazine spring and a follower. And lastly, I had a problem with one of my extended magazines a few days ago on the second skirm. Basically, the replica was shooting really soft, even though I had a fresh CO2 cartridge in there. You can see here in the video, I just changed my mag out because, yeah, it just feels like I'm shooting with an empty CO2 cartridge, which I know wasn't the case, but I changed the cartridge out anyway, and when I continued to try to play with that mag, it was just kept shooting soft. So I don't know what the problem is there, and if I figure it out, I'll include it in the overall review. Alright, so let's move on to the replica itself now. I had 3 major issues arise in the short time that I've had it, and I'll be able to explain to you what they were and how I fixed them. So the first major component to break was the nozzle stop. I was actually expecting this to break thanks to the time I spent in the Heavy Recoil Club Discord server. I was able to just have a look and see, what were the most common issues and preemptively order those parts. I also just had a quick look in the replica once I got it, and I could identify a bunch of parts that could break. And as you see here, I ordered a whole lot, including a CNC'd version of the nozzle stop. So once I took out the plastic and installed the CNC version, that was good to go, and I don't expect that to break again anytime soon. I have to say though, Modify really should put the CNC'd version as the stock part, because the plastic one only lasted 1 skirm, and that's, yeah, completely unacceptable. Okay, so after I replaced the nozzle stop, I assumed the replica should start shooting again, but I was surprised to see that the trigger was still not resetting. Single shot is broken. So first skirm, not even half a day of skirming for this to happen. That's pretty disappointing. Now, when this broke, I'd initially assumed that the trigger wasn't resetting because the nozzle stop was broken and the replica wasn't cycling properly. But after I fixed it, it turned out that this was a separate issue. So I was able to hop into the Heavy Recoil Club Discord server, and I was forwarded a video from Modify that explains how to fix this problem. So it's a problem that they're aware of, but yeah, a problem nonetheless. So I was able to fix that. It was a little bit time consuming because you have to take out the entire trigger box and stuff, but once you tighten one of those screws, or both of those screws at the bottom, the trigger will start to reset again. Okay, so moving on to another issue that arose. There were two bulges that formed on the charging handle attached to the bolt carrier, and this is because of the swinging of the small handle that you use to charge the replica, and that made it impossible to get the bolt carrier actually out of the receiver. So I had to like hammer that out, and then once I found the bulges, I was able to file them down and get it back in. So I don't know how much more often this is going to occur, but yeah, this also shouldn't be the case. Okay, so let's move on to the final issue I've had with the replica. Well, this isn't with the replica itself, it's actually with the flashlight. So I have two gripes with the Modify PP2K's flashlight. The first one is that it doesn't actually fit in the mount that comes with it. You have to wrap gaffer tape around the flashlight so that it tightens enough to hold it in place, which is crazy, makes absolutely no sense to me. And the second one is it just didn't work. I put the batteries in and I tightened the front of it, and it turns on but then turns off. Sometimes I can screw it all the way in and leave it on, as you see in the video here. But even if it does stay on when I tighten it all the way, after a couple of shots it goes again. So I guess I have to send this back to Modify as well. Okay, so time for my final conclusions. Yeah, if you've watched this entire video, you're probably not expecting me to give a really positive conclusion, but you know, keeping everything in mind that I've said previously, I am feeling a bit positive about the PP2K. I think it has a lot of potential, and I'll probably be able to get it to a place where I'm happy with its performance. But for a beginner GBB player that just wants to buy a replica and have it work and not break after a scrim or two, I don't think I can recommend the PP2K. If you're a more advanced GBBR user and you're able to fix replicas yourself, then one really cool thing is that Modify has made all of their parts really easy to source from their own website. So you don't have to go online and order a bunch of parts from a bunch of different retailers. So I have to give credit where credit's due, and that's a really big thing. So they followed up on their customer support. But yeah, the quality of the replica leaves a lot to be desired. You should be able to play a whole skirm without any major components breaking, and you also should be able to shoot an entire extended magazine with the standard nozzle. So I think overall I'd give this replica like something like a 5 out of 10, which I think is a huge shame for Modify because it feels like they almost got it right, but yeah, not quite. So Modify, get your shit together, fix your magazines, and yeah, let's hope that the newer iterations of the PP2K will be better than this. Alright, so that's it for this video. I hope you guys enjoyed it and got something out of it. If you'd like to support the channel, leaving us a super thanks or becoming a channel member would be a huge help. But you can also just leave a comment and a like, which will really help us with the YouTube algorithm. And yeah, see you on the next one.